Good afternoon, everybody. KB5 MIQ Big Boy, old ham radio cat up here in my lap. Well, we're going to kind of rehash something I've talked about a little bit in the past, maybe go a little more in depth. And we're going to talk about an upcoming event that may have some effect on communication, especially cell phone communication. All right, there's two eclipses coming up. One October 2023, it's going to take a more southerly, westerly track. Don't know how big it's going to be, but the one in April of 2024. Let me pull this up here, get my glasses on. On April 2024, April 8th, a total solar eclipse called the Great North American Eclipse will trace a narrow path of totality across 13 U.S. states. All right. The yellow lines outline the limits of the path of totality in each state, and so on and so forth. Let me talk to you about why I'm talking about it. Right now, this eclipse is going to track right through the area I live in. I'm trying to find, here we go, see a list of Texas cities in total ground zero, whatever you want to call it. Okay, if you start looking at Paris, Texas, it shows a 4-minute, 2-second duration. For Texarkana, Texas, only shows a 2-minute, 0.23-second duration. Clarksville, Texas, which is 16 miles due west of me, shows a 4-minute and 20-second duration of the eclipse. Okay, why do you think an eclipse is going to cause a communications issue? Well, let me give you a little history here a second. Last eclipse I saw was in the late 80s at the plant I worked for. We all got up, went to work that morning. When the eclipse happened, if we could grab a welding hood, walk to the window, looked at it, went back to work. That was the end of it. Of course, we didn't have internet. We didn't have these things, social media, to tell us what's fixing to happen. Now, you know, social media today, there'll be a jillion people doing their TikTok videos. I got to dance under the eclipse, or selfies, hashtag me and the eclipse. And who knows how this is going to be, because it will be blown out of all proportion, media and social media, because you know how that's the way they do things now. Local Aries group has already approached our ham club this past April, warning us about this. They may need help because they're thinking these cell phone towers are going to be saturated. Well, can that happen? Yes, I've seen it happen. And I've actually seen it happen 3 or 4 times, as a matter of fact, or they go down. In late 99, we had a tornado come through here, tore up the town just east of me. That was when I put a 2-meter back in my truck because I had a cell phone. I could not find the status of any of my family out because the cell phone towers were just overloaded. Of course, cell phones wasn't as prevalent then as they are now. We had an ice storm event, and y'all heard me talk about that. The cell phones and the landlines went completely down for several days during that when the power grid failed. And I did some emergency communications for a local fire department during that. And an event of any size can cause cell phone disruption. I haven't been to the Canton Trade Days in Canton, Texas in several years, but the last time I was there, my wife and my daughter got separated, so I'll call y'all at lunch. Couldn't call them. Talked to the security guard, he said, well, you got a town of 3,000 that's got 50,000 people in it, 1 weekend a month, and the cell phones are saturated. So, now, this kind of ties in with one of my earlier subjects, emergency communications. We don't know what's going to happen on that day. The Aries group is thinking there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people converge along this corridor just to see a 4-minute eclipse. Personally, I wouldn't drive 16 miles, much less 160 miles to see an eclipse. That's just me. And I've had people contact me several times right during an event or before worried about emergency communication. So I thought I'd break down some options for y'all in this video. And if you're serious about having an emergency communication plan, now is the time to implement it so you can get it in place and practice it. Because waiting till the event happens is useless. All right? That's the number one thing having emergency communications. You have to have it in place before the event happens. Or, no use doing it. So, I'm going to give you some options. I'm going to give you some unlicensed options, and I'm going to vary them by range and expectation. And I'm sure some of the experts are going to correct me on some of this, but this is just my personal thoughts on it. Shortest range emergency communications you can have. The simple FRS family radio service walkie-talkies. They're about a half-watt walkie-talkie. Most of them say 2 to 5 mile range. Let me clarify that right now. Any piece of radio equipment that gives you a range like that, that was tested on a salt flat. It ain't tested in northeast Texas in the woods and hills, Arkansas, or anything like that. At best, you better plan on about a half to 3/4 mile. So, if you're out in a rural area and you've got some neighbors you want to be able to keep track of, or very close by family, I'm going to say 3/4 mile or separate, and you want to be able to communicate if the phone systems go down, and you don't want to spend a lot of money, and you don't want to have to get a license, FRS way to go. I call them the deer hunting radios. You can buy them at Academy, MTC has them a lot, Walmart has them, Amazon's got them. You can buy them with batteries or rechargeable. But that is the shortest range that you can use. That'll just be a super short range radio, and it's FM broadcasts, FM transmission, so you won't have any squelch. It's automatically all set. And they work. I've used them deer hunting a good bit. Okay. The second level of unlicensed emergency communications is going to be the old standard CB radio. You'll get a little more range out of them. They're 4-watt radios, or if you buy the ones with sideband, they're 12-watt PEP sideband, 40 channels, and if you got a sideband, technically you got 120 channels because you got 40 AM, 40 upper sideband, and 40 lower. The range of an average CB radio, I'm going to say 5 miles. And before any CBers come out and correct me on this, we're not talking about anything you've modified. I'm talking about off-the-shelf equipment. Now, to enhance CB radio range, you could put a base antenna up. Probably not a lot of people going to want to do that because those antennas are they're not that large, but they are kind of large. And you just can't find poles and stuff like you used to. Hardware stores don't sell them. You would have to go to a ham radio store, such as MTC, or there's several places you can order them online. Walmart, I think you can order them online. They're going to be kind of expensive. A CB radio, mobile to mobile, probably reliably on AM 4 to 5 miles, maybe a little further. That's about it. All right. Now, we're going to get into the first type of communications that require a license. GMRS. It's another fixed channel radio service that was set up mainly, I think, for a group use, family, or a business. I'm not sure about the business, so experts don't correct me on that. It does require a license, but there's no testing involved. You just apply for the license, pay your $35, and they give you a license. The good thing about GMRS, your whole family can operate on one license. And another good thing about GMRS, you can get the same wattage radios that ham radio operators use in VHF, UHF radios. You can get 40, 50 watt mobile radios. Plus, you can put repeaters up. A repeater is usually like a rebroadcast station that's on a tall tower that extends the range. So if you got a repeater up close by, you're probably going to have an average of a 25-mile radius around there. That means you can talk. So if you're on this side of the repeater at 25 miles and your friend is on the other side at 25 miles, the other side, technically you'd have a 50-mile range. And the good thing, one license covers the whole family. The radios are going to be a little more expensive. And I'm seeing more and more GMRS repeaters being put up. In fact, there's a group over in a town just east of me that's talking about putting one up. WW5AH is talking about putting the GMRS repeater up. And I'm not sure they don't have one in Clarksville. I don't have my GMRS license yet. But radios are going to be more expensive. But it would be a good, viable, little longer range option if the 25-mile radius would cover your emergency communication needs. Now, let's get into amateur radio. Amateur radio technically will give you the world. All right? The gear's more expensive. The licensing to be able to use amateur radio effectively in emergency communications, you would have to go to your second level license, the general class, so you'd have access to all the bands. And before anybody, the experts come out, it's an emergency, license don't matter in emergencies. I'm not going to debate that. They may not. I'm talking about having your plan in place and practiced before the emergency, and you're going to have a license. And another thing, with amateur radio, everybody's got to have a license. If you have a family living in Utah that you want to be able to talk to, they're going to have an amateur radio license. You can get on the 40-meter band and probably talk to them any time of the day you want to. But they're going to have the same class license that allows them access to that band just like you do. And the equipment is much more expensive. All right? It's something to think about. Not going to debate the fact that emergencies, you don't have a license. I'm just trying to break down the different types of communications you can get. Amateur radio gives you access to a lot of different modes of communication. You've got your single sideband voice. Of course, you still got Morse code. There's a lot of digital modes out there, the computer use modes that you can use. You also have access to amateur satellites for satellite communications. But again, way bigger outlay of equipment, gear, and types of antennas. Okay. So, you've got some emergency communications. Say, okay, I'm not going to be able to get everybody on HF on amateur radio, but the GMRS would work for me for local, but I would still like to have access to worldwide broadcasts. Shortwave receiver. Get a really good shortwave receiver. I've got a small one here. I meant to lay it out before this, but it's under some books. And all you have to have, most of them got an antenna built in on them, or just a random length of wire thrown up in a tree hooked to it. And you can listen to the world. No license cost at all. All right. I hope I've been able to answer some questions about emergency communications. The thing you've got to remember, if you want to do effective emergency communications, you've got to prepare for it. You cannot wait till the event happens and then realize, oh crap, I can't talk to somebody. So remember, this event coming up next April may be a non-event, or it may have hordes of people in here from everywhere lining the roads for watching the eclipse for 4 minutes. Who knows? The eclipse itself, it will not affect radio or communications. What's going to affect it is the amount of people that's going to be here trying to use the cell towers that's in place. The cell people's got a year advanced on this. They may decide to put some portable towers in here to help with the load during that time. Who knows? But people ask me this question, so I'm trying to break down a video on it that'll give you some more options to think about. Again, if you want to have effective emergency communication, you have to get your plan in place and implement it before any event happens. I'm going to have my email address in the description of this video. If anybody has a question, feel free to email me. I'll try to answer them. I've tried to answer any question email I've got. All right, y'all remember Main Trading Company in Paris? He's got a bunch of sales going on right now, and has got a ton of used equipment hitting his website. All right, there's going to be some slides on here about upcoming Ham Fest, and the QRZ Jumpstart program is still going on. I have a slide on that. Shreveport's the next Ham Fest I'm going to try to go to. I hit 919 subscribers. Man, guys, I appreciate it. Me and old Ham Radio Cat really appreciate it. And like everybody, she's the smart one of the channel anyway. Hope everybody has a great week. This is KB5MIQ Big Boy. Adios.